Hello again. Here's how to make a electric car powered by solar cells. There are several kinds of solar cell that we use in education in schools. This type is one of the most popular because the fragile solar cell is contained in a robust plastic casing, and it's got two convenient connectors on the back. Unfortunately, these have slowly crept up in price over the years. These are around about £5 each, and you do really need two to make this electric car work. But so it's obviously not going to be a class activity, but it's nice to have one or two made to demonstrate how solar power works. First thing we're going to do is to connect these two solar cells together. This type of solar cell has a plus and a minus connector. It is labelled. It's not easy to see the signs on the back. That's the plus, that's the minus. We don't need the connector strip on the other one. And we join the plus of one solar cell to the minus of the other. So that's the plus there, so that's going to go over to the minus there. And we put the nut back on again. There we go. Don't be tempted to tighten these up too much, because the thread on these connectors hasn't been very well made, and you'll just strip it. So now we've got a plus there and a minus there. We're now going to mount these onto a piece of Corex. This piece of Corex is about 20 centimetres by 10 centimetres, and we need the terminals to pass through to the other side. So we're just going to find out where the terminals hit the Corex, and the way I do it is to position it at one end and then gently, not too hard, just push down so that the screws leave little marks there, and then hopefully, if it reaches, and I don't think it will, let's have a look. Yes, it will just about reach. We can punch those holes out with a hole punch. So that's a good reason for not making this piece of Corex wider than 10 centimetres, otherwise your hole punch isn't going to reach. So now we can pass those through, and you can see the terminals coming out the other side. I'm going to have to make those holes a little bit bigger. This I'm going to use a craft knife very, very carefully. Probably wouldn't allow the pupils to do this, depending on their age. This would have to be done by an adult. Always use a cutting mat when you're using a craft knife. So I'm just opening out these holes to allow plenty of space for the nut and the terminal to come through. Nearly done. Hopefully we'll be able to just push these pieces of Corex out now. I could have used a larger hole punch to get those pieces of Corex out. Doesn't matter if they're not very neat, because they're not going to be seen. They're going to be covered up by the solar cells. Okay. So now hopefully, when we've got the solar cells on top, there's plenty of room, as you can see, for the nuts to come through the other side. Now I'm going to glue the solar cells down so that at the front you've got a nice neat appearance. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I think I'm just going to glue the two solar cells together along that edge. using a high melt glue gun here just to give me a little bit longer to adjust the position. Here we are. And now I think I'll just put a blob of glue in each corner. Should be enough. There we are. And glue that down onto the corex, which is going to be the base of the solar powered racer. And there you can see we've got the two in position. These are the two terminals. Just going to mark, these are the two that we're going to use. The other two are joined together by the strap. Not really worried about which is the plus and which is the minus. I'm not really worried about which direction this is going to go. Now, to make it move, we're going to use an electric motor. We could use the standard electric motor. It does work, but if you use this slightly better quality motor, I know it's a little bit more expensive. They're often called solar motors. It has a better performance. It works on a lower voltage. The problem with them is they come ready fitted with these wires, which at first seems like an advantage over these, but these wires are annoyingly short and incredibly delicate, and they've only been stripped, I don't know if you can see, just about 2 millimeters, which is completely hopeless. So these need to be stripped. Now the first thing I do is cut those soldered tips off. You can't really use the automatic wire strippers because they're just a bit too brutal. They'll just cut the wire off completely. If you're incredibly careful, you could use scissors to strip it back. The way I do is with a craft knife. Go back about a centimetre, gently roll the knife around the wire without pressing down hardly at all, and then using your finger and thumbnail you can usually strip them back. I don't know if you're picking up now, we've got the wire stripped back. This is annoying. This project is available as a kit, and when I supply you with the kit I will have stripped these wires for you. There we go, and let's see if we can get the other one off. Yes, I've done it. You have good days and bad days at stripping these wires. Okay, now to connect the motor to the wheel, we're going to use these wheels and axles. We can't connect it directly because there won't be enough torque or turning power to make the solar car work. So we've got to reduce the gearing. So we're going to use a small gear on the motor and a large gear on the driven axle. This needs to be as big as we can, but it can't be bigger than the wheel. This one is available from my shop. Its code number is G105, I beg your pardon. It's got a 4mm hole. It's about 40mm diameter. So to fit the small gear onto the solar motor, it's got a 4mm hole and the motor's got a 2mm shaft, if you can see that. So we need to use an adapter. All of these components are available from my shop. So the adapter just pushes in like that, and now we can push this small gear, its code number is G100, onto the motor. Make sure it turns nicely. Okay, let's turn the solar car upside down and start assembling the driven axle. This is 4mm wood dowel. Hopefully it should be a nice tight fit into this gear. I should be able to push it in, yes. I might need to get a hammer. Here we are. And we're just going to tap the axle through. You could use 2 blocks. You could use the gap between 2 tables to allow the axle to pass through the other side. I've just improvised with a hole punch. And now we've got some dowel there that we can push through to push the wheel on there. That's a bit loose. We might need to put some, yes, I think I'm going to have to put some glue on there. Probably the wooden dowel was squashed a little bit as it went through the plastic gear. So there we are. That should hold it. That's much better. There we go. So now we've got the drive axle with the wheel and the driven gear. That's going to spin inside a straw like I usually do with my wheeled vehicles. So we'll just fix the straw on. We could use sticky tape or glue. I think I'll use glue today. Glue along here. Because I'm using a high melt glue, I'm just going to give that a few seconds to cool down, otherwise it will melt the plastic straw. If you're using low melt glue, you don't have to worry, you can put the two things together straight away. There we are, that's the straw fitted on, and then as usual I snip off to leave a little bit sticking out at the back there, at the side, I beg your pardon. And then slide the drive axle through, doesn't matter which side it's on, and pop another wheel on the other side. Got a bit of extra axle sticking out there. I'll just use, for speed, just use a pair of card cutting scissors to cut that excess axle off. There we are. Okay, that's our driven axle working quite nicely. When you push it together, don't push them together tightly, leave a little gap to make sure that it spins really nicely. Now here comes the tricky part. We've got to glue this motor on so that these two gears, so that the teeth on the gears fit inside each other. We call it meshing. I don't know if you can see the gears meshing there. We could use a motor mount to fix the motor. I'll just get one, it's not far away. Here we are. These are available from my shop. It's a plastic clip and the motor can be clipped in like that. Made a mess of that, there we are. Okay, but for some reason I don't use these, I just prefer just to glue the motor in position. So I'm just going to have a look at where the motor is, make a little mark there, just to remind me whereabouts the motor is. And now I'm going to put quite a healthy blob of glue there. It's high melt glue again, so we've got 10 seconds. So we've got plenty of time to adjust the position of the motor. There we are, squidge it into the glue, wriggle it about a bit, get those gear teeth meshed together, not too tight and not too loose. I don't know if you can see that as I turn the driven axle, the drive gear is turning. That feels okay. If necessary, you can then put extra glue, which I think I'm going to do, just to get that motor glued in firmly. That's by far the trickiest bit of the whole make. There we are. Let's connect up now. Now, in my workshop here, I always have a soldering iron. It's nearly always on, and what I could do is to solder, I don't know if you can see this, is to solder that wire onto that terminal post there and that wire onto that terminal post there. Now I realise that in primary schools you don't often have soldering irons, so we're going to use these nuts. That's why we stripped it back a bit more. Quite fiddly to do this, and you've noticed that I've arranged it so that the wires do actually reach the two terminals. if you end up with a design where the wires don't reach, you can obviously extend the wires with a bit more wire. So we'll just loop that round there and try and get this nut on. Quite fiddly. There we are. Just need something to help me get that nut tightened up without the wire coming off, which it's desperately trying to do. There we are. Got to have patience with these things. There we are. Now, where were those pin nose pliers I had earlier? The absolute ideal tool for tightening that nut up. There we are, that's one wire connected on, and let's get this other one on. You can see a problem I've got here, that I haven't really made a good enough job of cutting the corex to fit, so I'm just going to open it up a bit more. There we are. Now we can hopefully undo the nut. I wonder if I can get it underneath without undoing the nut completely. Let's see. There we go. Get the wire underneath. And do the nut up again. Would have been much quicker to have soldered the wires on, but I'm just showing that it is possible to connect it up without a soldering iron. There we are. We'll get that tightened up. Try and make it reliable. Okay, so that's the solar cells connected to the motor and the motor connected to the driven axle. At this point it's a good idea to see if it works. Let's see if we've got a desk lamp here, and I don't know if you can see that is turning. Okay, this is a fairly low watt bulb, so that looks okay. So we're nearly finished now. All we have to do now is to assemble the undriven axle at the other end, which is very easy. And just push or tap the axle into the one of the wheels. Fix the straw as before. Use glue again. Wait a few seconds, let it cool down a bit. This is high melt glue, otherwise it will melt the straw. There we are. Snip it back. And push the other wheel on. And push them or tap them together. They are being a bit stubborn. They're going. But don't scrunch them up tight. Leave a little gap. Make sure it spins easily. Cut off any excess, and that is the finished solar vehicle. Let's see if we can get some movement out of it with the desk lamp. As you can see, this is a very low wattage bulb, and we're struggling to get. There we are getting some movement. If I used a 40 watt bulb, or better still a 60 watt bulb, if you can still find such a thing these days, you'll get a better result. Don't leave it under a 60 watt bulb for too long, otherwise the heat will damage the solar cell. But it is a nice sunny day today, so I'm going to take this down to the playground and use the actual sun to see if we can get a better response. So watch out for that sequence coming up now, and good luck with making your electric solar car. Well, I haven't actually had to go down to the playground because it is a beautiful sunny day and we've got sunshine streaming in through the windows here. So although we've lost some of the energy of the sunlight coming through the glass, hopefully, yes, you can see it is going, spinning around quite happily. And let's see if it can actually move under its own power. Yes, there we are. I don't know if it's going to be able to get across this gap in the tables. Just about. Then it slows down when it goes into the shade. And if I give it a bit of a push into the next bit of sunshine, there we go, off it goes again. You can see it only just goes. Solar cells, these kind of solar cells are not very efficient. Let me get into the sunshine here and it should pick up speed. I'll show I'm not pushing it, not cheating. There we are. And obviously it would go even better if we took it outside in the direct sunshine.